So, Tim, I am holding a Reese's peanut butter egg. Do you dare me to eat it?
Don't do it, man.
It's full of oil. Do you dare me to eat it?
This stuff will kill you.
I'm going to do it. I think we're going to get a massive amount of hits because I'm doing this right now.
It's not worth it.
I'm doing it.
I'm going to miss you, Bill.
It's going to be a long death, but
stuff is chock full of chemicals.
Why do things that taste so good are so bad for you, and vice versa? Why are things, we just had this talk in the office, why are things that are so good for you taste so bad?
Because they're chock full of red dye number 3.
Red dye number 3, which I have in my system now.
Stuff is delicious.
It's flowing around in my bloodstream.
I don't know. That's a good question. It's can't somebody invent food that tastes good and is also healthy?
And I'm a junk food junkie, but I really want to make a conscious effort to eat healthy and eat healthier. But everything that is out there just tastes very bland. And my kids are, they're into training now, athletic training. They're doing weight training, stuff like that. And of course they have to eat protein, right? The whole goal is to just pound in the protein, and all these protein bars and protein shakes and protein whatever, they all taste terrible. My kids, we buy this stuff and my kids won't eat it because they're like, it doesn't taste good. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you have to put in some, I guess you have to lace them with petroleum-based dyes to get some taste in there, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think a big part of it, honestly, with the youth, because I have a couple of nephews and they drink water. They won't drink soda. They won't drink, they're not big on candy and stuff like that. And I think it's just a kind of a conditioning thing. I think my parents were, pouring Coca-Cola into my mouth before I was even old enough to talk. So we're conditioned to kind of need this sugar, right? I mean, I think a lot of it is a sugar addiction, and we're just so used to it. But if you grew up not, I think a lot of it also has to do with the obsession with, having a presence online, being a brand. Like all these kids these days, they're working out. Even the ones who aren't like necessarily trying to be in sports or something, they go to the gym, they drink water. They're much more, there's a greater awareness of what they're putting into their bodies. And I think a lot of this was kind of spearheaded by, Whole Foods, the Whole Foods phenomenon. And so I think that it's just kind of a generational thing, to be honest.
And Whole Foods really started this a long time ago. When they first came out, they were the healthy food alternative, and everyone went nuts over them because, oh my God, this is a store that just sells healthy foods. And even though the prices were elevated, everyone jumped on that bandwagon. Or was it mid to late 90s? Or
Yeah. Actually, when I was 20 years old, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast before, but I moved to Austin, Texas, and I got a job at a Whole Foods, and I had never heard of Whole Foods. This was 1995, and Whole Foods had just built its first big corporate headquarters there in Austin, Texas, right on 6th Street, not far from where all of the nightclubs and nightlife takes place, right? And I walked in and I thought it was the coolest place ever. Everybody there had tattoos. They were all in punk rock bands. This was like my dream world, right? And I think back then, there were really kind of two kinds of shoppers at Whole Foods that I noticed were wealthy people and people who were really, really obsessed with the environment. And
organic was huge.
Organic was starting to become this like enormous thing. And it prompted HEB, which was their competitor there in Texas, to launch Central Market. Central Market was was intended to be a direct competitor to Whole Foods, because Whole Foods is really starting to take off. And I think the reason that Whole Foods was so popular to people back then and is now is that the idea that you don't have to think about it. They do the thinking for you. They have this huge list of chemicals and additives and all that kind of stuff that they will not allow into products that are in Whole Foods. So, it's like you can feel safer about what you're eating and not have to read all the labels necessarily. And I think that was a big part of their appeal.
So we do have a news update during this podcast.
Boop, 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 boop.
Apparently, Trump is backtracking on tariffs. We don't know how much. Currently, on China. Currently, the tariffs on China are 145%. I believe the reciprocal tariff China has thrown on the U.S. is 125%. And Trump came out and said it's not going to be that high, but it's not going to be zero. So he's kind of leaving that wide range of what it's going to be. But Tim, you're working on the story, and I believe it's posted now at supermarketnews.com. The CEOs of Walmart and Target and Home Depot just had a meeting with the president on Monday. And it's kind of funny that 2 days later, Trump is kind of backtracking on the tariffs.
Yeah, you covered that story. And that was my first thought. I think we've talked about this in the past in our conversations about tariffs, that this is going to hit, these giant mega retailers like Walmart and Target and others in such a significant way that, like, at what point are they going to, come out against these tariffs? It was interesting because, I got the story assignment this morning and I start reading around and taking a look at, what others have written. And nobody really mentioned the Target Walmart meeting just the day before. They happened to miss that. And I'm sure that there are some news organizations that got it. I only read a handful of stories about it, but I just thought, what a massive hole in these stories. Maybe it's a little bit speculative to say, oh, well, they met with Walmart and Target and Home Depot CEOs yesterday, and now they're pulling back on the tariffs. Perhaps it's somewhat coincidental. I don't think so, though. It seems to me pretty obvious. And I figured that once these big players started really coming out strong, that's when you'd see some change. And here we are.
Yeah, I believe the Secretary of Treasury came out and said just those tariffs just are not sustainable. He said that yesterday at a investor meeting, JP Morgan, I believe. It was a closed door meeting, and then Trump came out with that. But let's go to the meat counter. Let's get to the meat of the matter. We've already kind of teased it. We're obviously going to talk about the phased out plan that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has on petroleum based dyes. And remember that Seinfeld episode, Tim, where Elaine ran into John F. Kennedy Jr. in the gym, and she kept on saying, John F. Kennedy Jr.
I do remember that episode.
So we got an RFK Jr.
RFK Jr.
To our storyline to our podcast today. RFK Jr. Now, okay, admittedly, RFK Jr., he's been very radical, very drastic, a lot of his stances. But I think he got it right. I think the Department of Health and Human Services got it right with this one. Call it a small victory. But yes, it's a 2-year phase out of petroleum-based dyes. Specifically, if you really want to get to the brass tacks and nuts and bolts, it's citrus red number 2 and orange B. It's green number 3, red number 40, yellow number 5, and number 6, blue number 1 and number 2. And I believe the Biden administration already started putting the wheels in motion for red number 3.
Well, I agree with blue number 1, but I love blue number 2. I can't get rid of it. I'm going to have to go to the black market for my blue number 2.
Yeah, you better, and maybe you get some IV lines set up with blue number 2 too, because
that's right.
You might as well go all out if you're going to go to the black market and buy in bulk. You probably get a little discount there too.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of opportunity right now, the stuff that's going out.
So red number 3 is supposed to be banned by the end of January 2027. They're going to look to speed that up as far as, I say banned, phased out, however you want to say it. But RFK Jr. met with the food manufacturers, and there is not an official agreement in place. There is an understanding that is in place now. So it's not like this is going to be law and they have to, go to more natural dyes by a certain date. So that's a little, that's a little iffy there. They said that these food manufacturers are the ones that really came to the table and were anxious to work with the federal government because there are states out there that have already put this in place. West Virginia, we just recently signed a bill into law that eliminates a number of dyes, especially in children lunches, by, I believe, 2028, or actually a little bit sooner. California has come out and they've passed legislation that eliminates dyes by a certain date. So they were saying, well, we don't want to have to abide by these different state laws. We might as well just put it all in at the federal level and work with you guys, and you guys can blanket that out and get a standard set. So that's what they're saying is how this all came into play.
Yeah. Well, and you're the expert on this. You've written about it. I have not as much. The thing that I think is still a big question mark in a lot of people's minds is what exactly do all of these, dyes and things go into? Like you don't know. I mean, you can imagine that maybe Red Hots or certain candies and things like that. I really have no clear idea of how far this goes and what the impact is going to be on the shelves, once it goes into play.
That leads us to another question as how are these shoppers going to be able to tell a company is following the rules? And RFK Jr. had an answer for that. They're going to develop an app where you can scan the barcode or scan a QR code on the product, and it will tell you if a company is complying or not. So I thought that was a little bit interesting as well. As long as they follow through on that, that would be a good aid to have for shoppers, in grocery stores.
Yeah. It's just kind of a matter of how many people are actually going to take the time to do that. I mean, I think that there are a handful of people who will. And maybe if you have kids, you might be more inclined, the youth might really be into this. I can see it being a, viral TikTok video sometime in the near future. But, is that really enough? Who knows?
And just to clarify, to backtrack here, so the West Virginia law that was just signed, the law prohibits red dye number 3, number 40, yellow dye number 5, number 6, blue dye number 1, number 2. There's your blue dye, Tim. It's on the chopping block again.
Love that stuff.
And green dye number 3. So it prohibits that these dyes in any meal served in school nutrition programs. They're banned starting August 1st of this year. And then all products sold in the state beginning January 1st, 2028. That's where I had the 2028 year. But so they will be the first state that is going to come out and say, we're not serving this to our children. And then California, that ban takes effect at the end of 2027, just to clarify that.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's probably one of the best things about it. Like, if you're an adult, maybe you can make your own decisions and figure it out on your own. But when they serve this stuff to kids at school, they don't have a choice. I mean, you have the choice between the pizza and the meatloaf for lunch and a carton of milk. Speaking of milk, this is the only real contribution that I have to this because I've been following the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service press release website. The Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, put out a press release just yesterday applauding the International Dairy Food Association, announcing that they are going to voluntarily remove red 3, red 40, green 3, blue 1 and 2. Oh man, that stuff is good. Yellow 5 and yellow 6 in milk, cheese, and yogurt for K through 12, beginning during the 2026-27 school year. So, I think some groups are already kind of getting in line on this, right?
Yeah. And, the National Confections Association, they deal with candy and chocolate and all that. They're on board too, for the most part. I mean, they came out with a statement yesterday and said, hey, we agree, something needs to be done. And I believe there's other associations that have come out and said, we're ready to work with the administration. Now, I don't know what that means. I mean, when someone says we're ready to work with the administration, that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, they're going to, applaud and agree and do everything that the administration says.
Right.
But I didn't, like you said, now cheese, obviously, cheese is naturally white, I believe. So obviously they're using dyes to make that more attractive. But are there any dyes in milk? That would be kind of crazy. I don't know.
Again, this comes back to what are these dyes used for? I mean, this would make kind of an interesting story somewhere down the road. I'm sure that somebody's already written this, but yeah, I mean, it really comes back to and speaks to the notion that we, in many cases, don't really know what's in our food unless you're vigilant about it, and there's really only a handful of people, I think, that still look at all of these ingredients really closely. It's becoming more popular, but still, I think most people by and large don't do that.
So now we come to the point where I'm very frustrated. Here's my frustration point. This is the whole 3-year-old me saying why. Okay, so a lot of these U.S. food manufacturers, they've been using natural dyes or what you call in some of their foods because they have customers overseas. And as you know, dyes have been banned in Europe for years. So these food manufacturers, they've been doing this already.
Right.
So
right.
why do they decide, hey, yeah, Europeans, they can eat well or healthier. Americans, whatever. We're going to dump on you.
I think this really speaks to like just sort of the regulatory nature of Europe versus the United States. Like regulations are a lot more. You just see a lot more financial regulations. You see a lot more the regulatory schematics of those countries a lot more rigorous than they are here typically. And so it's not like these food manufacturers don't have a roadmap. They know what they need to do. They just probably don't want to do it because it's going to hit their bottom line. People are going to be saying, hey, the Red Hots don't taste as good as they used to. I don't want to buy them anymore. People get fussy about that kind of stuff. So I can understand their concern, but we're talking about like the health of the nation here. So I think it is important stuff.
So you're saying it's kind of like the Ford Pinto. It's like they knew they had a major issue that Pintos blew up when they got rear-ended, but they're like, we're not going to recall 500,000 automobiles. That's far more expensive, and that's going to tarnish our image. We're just going to let it play out.
Yeah, it's a cost benefit analysis. Like, you want to make an omelet, some people are going to have to die of red food poisoning.
And that also leads me to my next frustrating point is why haven't prior administrations done anything about this? Obama had 2 terms. Clinton had 2 terms. Bush had 2 terms. Well, I realized that Biden got it going late in his administration with one of the dyes. Well, why didn't he do it for year 1 into his administration? Why are these administrations just standing around and letting it happen?
Right. I mean, I think it's difficult to go up against these large companies, and there's not the political will. I mean, this is a totally separate conversation, but you've got like a whole army of lobbyists in Washington, D.C., the ability to donate unlimited amounts of cash to politicians. You just buy them out. I mean, it's pretty easy. You got Citizens United that open the floodgates of soft money here to these politicians. And all you have to do is toss them some bucks or maybe threaten them with some competition up in the next election cycle and done and done. I think that's how it works here. And it's a big problem.
Yeah, I think everyone with a brain knows that lobbyists run this country. It's not the politicians. So that's the unfortunate, sad truth. So paper or plastic time. Here is my paper or plastic question to you, Tim. Will we see more RFK Jr. actions here regarding food? Now, let me give you an example. He's a very, very big proponent of eliminating sugar from the diet. And he even admitted during the press conference yesterday, he would love to put a ban on sugar, but you just can't do it. Are we going to see more moves by RFK Jr. down the line that results in better food, healthier food? Is this just the beginning?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think we've heard the last from RFK Jr. But I know that he's got a big focus on, believe that he said, and maybe I'm misquoting or misunderstanding here, so, don't hold me to this, but that he's going to cure autism by September. So the guy's got a lot on his plate right now, right? As it concerns food. We'll have to see, I mean, if they cared about safe food, maybe they wouldn't have gotten or delayed, FEMSA, what is it, 2.5 years or something? I know that there are a lot of good reasons to delay that food traceability rule, but it certainly didn't look great when you're out there trying to talk about how safe you want the food supply chain to be. So, what's next? Who knows? I mean, but yeah, no, we definitely haven't heard the last from RFK.
I would agree with you, but as you know, I believe on April 1st, RFK Jr. announced 10,000 layoffs. Was it? I think the FDA was over 2,000, like 2,500 or 1,500 layoffs in the FDA. A lot of them are in the food safety sector.
Right.
So I'm thinking how this has been playing out since President Trump took office and these mass terminations have taken place, that they're going to have to go back and hire these people back, or some of these people back.
Yeah, and I mean, you've already seen that in other areas of the government where they fired everybody, and then they were like, "Oh, wait a second, we got to bring them back." It's a matter of who's willing to come back after that. I mean, if somebody fired me and then said, "Oh, whoops, we still need you," that would need to come with some kind of raise or bonus. A lot of these folks have already moved on at this point, and really, I can imagine that there's somewhat of a revolving door between the FDA and these companies, just like a lot of other areas of our government that we see. So, yeah, no, I don't think you can fire everybody and have a well-functioning government.
Tim, I'm starting to see some withdrawals from your blue dye number one. I think are you feeling okay? I think
I got the shakes earlier this morning.
I think you're getting them again, man. So I think
I got cold sweats. Give me that blue dye number 6 or 5. Which one?
Number one.
Number one.
Because we're concerned about your health here, Tim. So
I care about my health a great deal. I'm Mr. Healthy here.
That will do it for another episode of Grocery Guys. I'm Bill Wilson. He is Tim Inkelbarger. Have a great rest of your week.